Who? Patty.
Gotcha. I'd like to call to order the New Philadelphia Board of Education regular meeting scheduled for October 18th, 2021. We'll start with our mission statement. New Philadelphia City Schools will provide all students the opportunity to achieve their highest potential to become educated, self-sufficient, and responsible citizens. We are committed to providing every student a diverse, quality education within a safe and secure environment through a dedicated, innovative, and highly qualified staff in partnership with parents and the community at large. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. France?
Present.
Dr. Fuller?
Here.
Mr. Galentine?
Present.
Ms. Leeper?
Present.
Mr. Weaver?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Approval of the agenda. Any additions or deletions to the agenda? Call the roll.
I need a motion.
Oh, a motion, I'm sorry.
Move. Second.
Mr. France?
Yes.
Dr. Fuller? Mr. Galentine? Ms. Leeper?
Yes.
Mr. Weaver?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Item 3, approve the minutes of the work session and special meetings and regular meeting. Can I get a motion?
So moved. I'll second.
Mr. Weaver?
Yes.
Mr. Galentine?
Yes.
Mr. France?
Yes.
Dr. Fuller?
Yes.
Ms. Leeper?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Public participation. Jill Rippett, if you would stand, state your name and your address, please.
My name is Jill Rippett. Can I take this down for a second? My name is Jill Rippett. I live at 531 Springwood Circle Southwest in New Philadelphia. Is that good?
Yes.
All right. I just have a handout for everyone that's up here of what I'm going to read tonight so that there's no questions about it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. A few things I want to address tonight. I'll stand over here. The first one is the COVID leave MOU, and it's attached to the back of your notes there. Last year, we had that federal mandate, sorry, not necessarily one, but that granted us 80 hours of COVID leave if we were quarantined or something like that. It applied to everyone. And so we, as a district, with the NPEA and with the board, agreed that since we have so many days in the COVID leave bank, not COVID leave bank, the sick leave bank, that if staff members were quarantined, whether they were, had COVID or their families had COVID, we could pull the leave from the sick leave bank as opposed to being charged our own sick leave. We have a lot of young people that maybe just starting out, and this is going to cause them to go into a deduct situation because they can't help it. It's not like the flu or you have Tamiflu or a cold or something like that. You are forced to be in quarantine by the health department. So what we are asking is that the board, in good faith, extend this MOU, and we brought it up in labor management, and I realize that you guys are going to have to talk amongst yourselves about it, and that's fine. But for as long as we're, having to be quarantined, and as long as this pandemic exists, we're all still masking up in school. We just feel like it would be a good faith effort to allow us to still take the leave from the sick leave bank. We have over 1,800 days in the sick leave bank. We don't even have people putting days in anymore because they cap it in our contract at 1,350. So we just feel like this would be another, thing that would be great for the district to do is, at the time, I can read this to you that I gave to you. Last year when the federal government's relief program granting workers 80 hours of paid COVID leave expired, the district and the NPEA created a memorandum of understanding that's attached that gave the teachers the opportunity to utilize from the sick leave bank for verified COVID absences. At that time, it was all of our beliefs and hopes that in the 2021-22 school year, we would not be as affected by COVID as a result of the vaccines provided. However, as the school year begins, we see this is not the case. We're back to masks. We have a lot of, kids out quarantined. Last year, only 11 teachers needed to utilize that MOU. Only 11. So we only had 11 people that were affected by it after the federal government mandate expired. This year, right now, according to the health department that we just saw, we have 14 teachers that have already been specifically themselves affected by COVID. Not to mention the teachers like myself that have had children or family members affected by COVID, and we're stuck in that quarantine. We can't not abide by the rules. And so we are just asking for some assistance from the board in the same manner that we had before. And so while we realize this is a bargaining unit year, we are going to negotiate a contract at the end of this year. However, we don't want to wait to the end of this year to negotiate this because we have a lot of new staff members who don't have any sick days at all to give. And so they're going to end up in deduct days, not getting paid because they are forced to quarantine by the health regulations. So we're trying to look out for our members in that respect. So that was the first thing I would like to bring to your attention tonight.
Thank you.
Second thing I would like to bring, which I'm sure you're all aware, was that there was a social security number breach for hundreds of our staff members. Back to 1994, Denny, but perhaps you're included. If you remember the sick leave bank, our social security numbers were disclosed by email by Ms. Irwin, inadvertently, but still. So we're concerned about it. We're concerned about the repercussions of this, as anybody would be. In the email that she sent to us on Thursday, she stated 3 things, which were also concerning to us. First thing she said was that IT was working on making the email inactive so that it would no longer be visible. As you know, in the board policy, the first day of school, we have to show and check off in our board policy, in our public school works, that we have shown a video to our students that shows them exactly what happens if you put yourself out there on the internet, exactly how long it stays. It never goes away. So the fact that IT is making it invisible, it's not really doing much for our staff's support here. It's not invisible, it's out there. Also, that you cannot redact something from a public records request. It's out there. So if anyone were to public records request it, it's out there. So our identity is being compromised. Second thing she put, that Mrs. Irwin put, is that Kennedy Insurance has been contacted. That was the end of the statement until today. That doesn't do anything for us. What does that mean? They've been contacted. So now what? So what is that going to mean to us when our social security numbers, hundreds of teachers of social security numbers are out there? The last thing is that they are researching the possibility of purchasing identity theft programs for the individuals included on the list. I will say that after school today, I didn't have a chance to print it because it was after school. We did get an email from Ms. Irwin stating that they will purchase identity theft protection for us for 1 year. However, what happens in year 2? I mean, if you've done any research on identity theft, if you're getting someone's social security number, birth date, and address and name, you are not doing anything with that for a few years. If you get a credit card number, you're doing something now because they're going to shut that off. If you get a social security number, you're waiting. So 1 year is a concern for our members. And we just would really like to know what is going to happen, what the board is planning to do, and whether or not there will be 100% transparency from you as to what is happening with our identities. It's a huge concern for our members. That's what I have.
Thank you.
You want me to go ahead and address it now?
Please.
So, when I emailed out the first email, it was when I had just found out, so I hadn't even had time to do anything, but I knew I needed to contact people. So what I had done at that point when I sent that email out was I'd been notified by one of the staff members who found it. I notified the superintendent, contacted IT and asked them what we could do with that email. Called Kennedy Insurance, and the reason is because we carry cyber insurance, and I wanted to see what the protocols were in place. And then I started researching identity theft because I knew that we had to provide something. That was within 2 hours and 10 minutes of it happening, and I had been notified at about an hour and a half. So, I mean, I reacted to it as quickly as I possibly could. After that, I was contacted and I also contacted the attorney to ask if there was any case law so that I could follow whatever case law was. The case law that is out there is the state of Oklahoma. And so he contacted me. He said the first thing you need to do is pull back that email and lock it in the vault. And so that's what I did. I had contacted IT already and asked them to see what they could do with it. They pulled back that and locked it in the vault. Your question too, can I redact it? I can, because it removes it from the recipient's email addresses. It does not remove it from mine. So I still have everything intact.
So just.
I can take that.
Public records request your emails. You can redact that.
Yes.
So
You
what-
redact social security numbers, you redact student names. There's a whole list in the policy.
Okay, because I did ask this at labor management,
Yes.
you didn't know the answer to that.
We did know the answer. We said it was in policy, we had to do redactions.
Okay.
So, yes, I can redact it.
I think isn't that the biggest delay in a public records request is that it could be thousands of pages and you or Amy are obligated to go through and make sure that that kind of information that you're talking about, social security numbers, medical records specific to an individual child is blacked out and redacted. That's the biggest delay when someone makes a request like that,
Why would you email
the
that
research.
if you had to redact it?
Me?
Yeah.
I didn't email it. I think
just
that
Well, we have,
Like, why would
because
I don't think
people not all public records requests are about emails. They can be about files, they can be
Right.
about,
I was just answering.
so we have to review every word on a document and do redactions. It's very, very time consuming, and that's what we do.
But would you agree that this is a definite
So-
breach?
Yes, it's a breach.
And that-
So,
That the fact that it's been emailed, it's out there, just like we teach our kids.
well, it should have stayed internal in the district and it got forwarded. So,
I mean, you can't help that.
yeah, no, I can't help that. I can't stop it. I can't pull it in. But, to take it a step further, so what happens when you contact your insurance company and you have cyber insurance is they put you in contact with what's called a breach coach, who is an attorney, and basically they give you a list of items you have to follow, which is why it's taken me so much time to get everything done, because I've spent a lot of time on this. Of my own making, I understand that. So I had to have them put that in the vault. We have to develop the list for the insurance company because they have to contact everybody. For the people that are on that list that are deceased, we have to provide a next of kin. So we're working on getting next of kin information. And then they'll send an email out to everyone. They do provide a person for like a identity theft coach, so that anybody on that list will be able to call and use that. You'll get identity theft. You just have to follow the direction, call, sign up, and you're covered for identity theft. And again,
Yes, but it seems like a lot of work for
It
one
is.
little click.
it is 12 months.
Not really enough. Just
Um,
saying. I mean, you can get, Jesse, if you want to, but I'm just saying, it's gonna be longer than 12 months. That this could possibly be out there. And one more question that I have is that the email that you sent to all certified staff today, letting us know what was happening, did not go to everyone who was afflicted by this. It went to all people who are working here.
right,
This went back to 1994.
I understand
Have
that.
you
So
contacted anyone,
the-
like Denny?
the attorney, the breach coach, advised that I maintain the same path of communication rather than veering off that path of communication, they will contact every other person. That's, I mean, I understand, and I actually called them and said I would like to send a letter to everyone. They said, we don't want you to do that. We want to take control of the whole situation. If you want to reply, you can give a reply in the same manner that you sent. So in other words, I sent it all certified, so I have to send that reply back there. I didn't even veer from that with like all admin or anything like that. I just did all certified. They requested that. There's very, very specific protocols that go into it. I couldn't be sorrier that it happened. If I could stop it now, I would. I didn't know that was on that sheet. It was a file that was there from my predecessor, and yeah, I did it.
So one more question, and please forgive me, but this is a violation of board policy, right? I mean, you admitted in the labor management meeting that you violated a board policy by sending that out.
I don't know that I violated board policy.
During that meeting.
No, I didn't say I violated board policy. It's board policy not to release that information.
You released it.
But there is certain things that can happen inadvertently.
Yeah, like
And-
a lot of people that inadvertently violate a board policy that have been burned on mistake and have those put in the box in their file. I'm just saying, I'm just wondering what's going to happen.
I don't know the answer to that, and that is up to the board. So,
I think the board's first and foremost concern is that we address this as effectively and completely and wholly as we can to fix it. Or come as close as we can to fixing it. You know, that I feel like that's the appropriate, this is just me personally, I am one of 5 up here, but I think the most appropriate action for the board to take right now is to support the administrative team in whatever we've got to do to, let's say, minimize the negative impact of, potential negative impact of the information that was in that email. Once we get that fixed, we can backtrack and do what we got to do. But I really, I'm solid on our first focus needs to be to fix it. Is my personal opinion.
I would agree, it's my social security number, so I would hope that's your first step.
Yes,
Agenda.
thank you.
But while we've got you here in your audience, the COVID leave was just brought up Thursday, right?
It was.
Okay, and was that just shut down? Was it? I mean, I'm not as familiar as you all are with how the MOU labor management process works.
Right.
And I mean, is a Thursday to Monday
It wasn't shut down.
okay?
But I also told Amy in the meeting that I was gonna bring this to your attention as well, because you're the board,
Mm-hmm.
and you are who votes on this. So I figure, why wait a month when this is happening right now? I might as well bring it to your attention. It wasn't anything against Amy or what she shut down.
I'm just trying to make sure that I have a clear picture of what happened, if it was something that she was completely against at the beginning, or you're just for our information kind of letting us know what was going on at this meeting.
Absolutely.
Okay. Got it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. John Freshwater,
Yes,
you can state your name and your address, please.
John Freshwater, 334 South James Street.
Thank you.
I'm a retired school teacher. Something I kind of noticed when all this come in. I want to start with a quote from Plato, famous quote. 2 of the most important things in a society to make it healthy: who gets to teach the children and what they teach. The question I bring forward to you is this, and I guess it's rhetorical. And the question is this: does New Philadelphia schools, do they teach critical race theory? when I looked at that, I thought, okay, let's go back and look at your minutes, school board minutes. I got back to December 21st, 2020. All school board members, from what I see on there, it looks like they voted yes for it. They were all in attendance. And you all voted yes for a contract with Panorama. Education contract. The cost of that was $30,581.25. It was approved. By the way, Dover also approved it April 12th. So they also had the same curriculum. If you've been following the media the last 2-3 weeks, the major networks, so forth, you can see that it's a very, very hot topic. If you haven't, let's check into it. Okay? But it's been a very hot topic last 2-3 weeks. What is critical race theory? And I'm going to sum it up here very, very simply. Is this. It teaches that Americans and its supporters and its institutions are inherently born with it, racist and discriminatory, and that race is used as a social construct to oppress and exploit people of color. Most programs and institutions do not come out and say it that way. They usually disguise it, such as Panorama. They disguise it very well. They use words such as culturally responsive, building academic and social emotional skills, affirming students' social and cultural histories, and helping students recognize and analyze and address social inequities and racist policies. All those are just disguises of critical race theory. Very involved with survey questions, this Panorama is. They create them, they analyze them, they collect them. Major donor, Zuckerberg, millions of dollars he put into Panorama. Well known that he data mines. Why wouldn't he? For Facebook. It's very profitable. Is he data mining the children here in New Philadelphia? These survey questions. What are some of the survey questions? I've got 4. Some of the survey questions from Panorama. How confident are you that students at your school can have honest conversations with each other about race? How well does your school help students speak out against racism? Currently, I mostly strongly identify as a genderqueer, non-binary, fluid, female, male, or transgender. Currently, I identify as heterosexual, straight, LGBT. So these are some of the questions that are shared. I don't know what grade level, but it can go all the way down to elementary, very low in the elementary school, all the way down to kindergarten. It's don't know if it's being I have no idea how it's being used here, but I see that it's being used. And you're paying an awful lot of money. And it appears like most contracts, when I looked at the contracts, they're 3, 4, 5 years out, and you're still paying money. Don't know if New Philadelphia is doing that or not. It's because when I look at your minutes, it just doesn't say much, so I don't know, but you know. Okay. How it's being used, you know, unless you're not going into the classrooms. Being a teacher, rarely do I see a school board member. I highly suggest school board members get into the classrooms and see what's being taught. If you haven't been in there, it's time you get into the classroom. Now, obviously, when you walk in, the teacher will change very quickly, okay? I did it, okay? You kind of do things a little different when somebody else is in there, when the principal comes in, superintendent, or school board member, okay? But know what's going on in the classroom. Know what's being taught in the classroom. Be visible. These survey questions are just part of Panorama. There's a bunch of them, okay? Panorama likes to use the word SEL, social emotional learning. Again, it blurs, it's a way of blurring racism and identity and gender. It is blurred. Panorama education, here's a quote from them. This is right out of their site. We commit to dismantling systemic racism. That's a quote from them. One of the co-founders, his name is Zan Tanner. This is what's real big in the news today. Zan Tanner is the son-in-law of the AG, okay, Merrick Garland. Merrick Garland just came out with a memo, and the memo was basically based on your union, your NSBA union, without going into great detail, sent a letter to Joe Biden encouraging them to, the AG, or encouraging them to do something in school boards today because there's such an outburst in them, okay? And within 4 days, the AG, Merrick Garland, he came out with a memo, and he has now the FBI involved in it, the DOJ involved in it, and there's a hotline number for for teachers or board members to call if I was too loud as a parent or looked like I was harassing or threatening. You could call me and I have the FBI at my doorstep. Ridiculous. Way old. That's like use a sledgehammer and knock in a finish nail. You can have a police officer come in here and take care of me. You don't need to have the FBI. That's the level that it's gone. Okay? I do understand that some schools board, there is some stuff going on, but it's very few, and I think the city, police, or state can handle it. The FBI doesn't need to be called in, the DOJ doesn't need to be called in, and it looks like collaboration from your union, the NSBA, the White House. All this took place in 4 days. The letter went in from NSBA. 4 days later, the AG sent out a memo, and here we are in this state today where the Patriot Act even mentioned. Domestic terrorism. I am not a domestic terrorist, okay? I should have the right, any parent should have the right to be able to come in, speak with the school board and give their opinion and what they see and recognize, and should get a response back. Okay? I would love to sit down and speak with you about it someday. I mean, I would like to do it one-on-one more, because maybe I'm off. If I am off, please let me know. I would love to discuss it with any of you, the president, that type of thing. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question real quick?
Sure.
Sure?
We're running out of time with our
Okay,
public participation.
I understand that, but
I want
we've-
Todd to be able to speak.
Yeah. Is the OEA part of the National School Board Association? So I understand what you're referring to. I've heard about it, I've read it, I've seen it, but I don't think that the bargaining unit that represents the educators here at New Philadelphia.
I'm a little confused about that too.
I thought, I was understanding NSBA is basically the union for school boards for all the nations.
I think
Am I wrong on that?
Ms. Griffith could probably address that better than any of us, because that would be a bargaining unit thing. We're at the administrative level. Joe, I mean, if you don't mind.
No, I honestly, I need to look forward, further into what you're saying.
Okay.
I'm not sure that I'm well versed enough to speak on it now, but I can tell you that the union that I represent, they're not a part of that. So if any unions, teachers' unions are supporting what you're talking about, that has nothing to do with them.
Okay.
So, I mean, would it be fair
The
to,
letter from the White House was from NSBA.
I think that's accurate.
Yeah.
I believe that, but I mean, would it be fair for us to characterize this, Jill, as the NPEA is a local union
Correct.
that operates under the umbrella of the OEA, the Ohio Education Association, which is an independent organization, doesn't have any affiliation with the National Education Association, which is what I believe.
We are under the NEA.
But he's saying that.
But that's a different,
I don't know what
right.
that is. But the National Education Association is our overarching umbrella.
Okay, yes.
The Ohio
I think
Education
it's
That's
safe
different.
or protected under a new.
Yeah, none of us, board or bargaining unit, are operating under the umbrella of what he's referring to. Okay.
What is the Ohio School Board operating under? Because isn't
It's just that.
OSBA.
All right.
Saying national.
What again, this is what is out there. Again, I'm trying to be as factual as I can. it all appears like there's an attorney firm called American Life Attorney Firm that's gotten information, maybe a whistleblower, I don't know, but he says there was collaboration in early summer that the NEA, NSBA, the White House, DOJ, FBI collaborated and encouraged the NSBA to send a letter to the White House. And 4 days later, which they say that is unbelievably fast, that just doesn't happen, the AG came out with a memo and said, and talked about.
Which is separate from what the teacher did.
Yeah.
Right, that is correct.
I don't have any knowledge of that. And you're including the NEA on?
Yes, my understanding, NEA was involved in it.
I have.
Again, this is something I've read and heard.
And
Okay.
the Pennsylvania school board just pulled out of the NS because of labeling parents that are mad domestic terrorists. So I don't know if that's what Ohio's in too. I would assume.
That I do not know if they are, but we personally, this board is not involved in any of that. We were not part of any of that. Now, we're part of we affiliated with the Ohio School Board. But as far as I know, we're not under that.
Ohio School Board.
That is correct, but we're not under the umbrella of the national.
With the NSBA, according to the NSBA website.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Todd McMath.
Yeah, Tom McMahon, 1838 Wild Cherry Lane here in New Philly. I just have two quick things. I promise I'll be quick. Number one, we got 2 letters in the mail today. I messaged Mrs. Wentworth about it. I thought they were great from 2 of my kids' teachers, basically just saying how wonderful my kids are. Thank you very much. But also, I just wanted to say, I know Amy knows about this, but I wanted the board to know about this as well, that I thought that was absolutely fantastic that we did that. I think that is the culture that we want to have here in Philadelphia City Schools. That right there. My kids came home, I watched them, they read it, huge smiles on their faces. I mean, they're good kids, they know they're good kids, but just from their teachers, that right there is amazing. Jill, please tell the teachers, thank you.
No. We thought that too. I mean, when that came down, like, hey, here's free, cards. They gave us cards. Like, here's free cards. Write them to your students.
That's great.
We all did, and we embraced that, and I loved it too. And when I see the kids that I wrote to, they haven't said anything to me in class, but I'm like, they have to know. You know what I mean? Like, they have to know.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Second thing is, we have an awesome thing going on this fall at the school as well, and that is a girls varsity soccer program. There's 13 1-1, and we're not talking about that. Like, I know it's Dover Philly week. I know it's football. I get that. I understand that, but we also have a soccer program that's struggling. Soccer program that we didn't have enough girls this year to have a JV team. And what a great opportunity. People want to be a part of something successful. And so, as a school system, let's get it out there. Board members, I'd love to see you tomorrow night as our tournament game against North Canton Hoover. Love to see you there. Amy came to a game. I got to stand and talk to her for a while. It was awesome to have her there. But 13 1-1.
Where is it?
It's here at the Southside Community Park.
Okay.
You got to buy tickets online through OSHA, but it's a great thing. I just think what an incredible way to build our soccer program again, and just say, hey, little girls, this is a great thing that we got going on here. And so let's talk about it. Let's let our community know that that's
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Also, girls, boys golf, going to state.
Yes.
Yes, yay.
Girls golf, going to state.
So, more good stuff happening. Okay, thank you very much. Item 5, health and safety update. Right? Did I skip something?
Yeah, nope.
What did I skip?
Nope. I was just zoned out
okay.
for a second. Health and safety update, agenda item, vote to continue the mask requirement in all NPCS buildings for visitors, staff, and students grades K through 12 until November 15th, 2021, when it will be reevaluated again.
Need a motion?
So moved.
Second.
I'll second.
Discussion? Can you give an update?
What's,
So where we're at?
So according to our data, we have definitely turned the corner with regard to, the number of active cases. Well, the number of cases is staying relatively stable, but, within the district, but the number of cases within Tuscarawas County, and across the state, they are definitely dropping both overall and totals, and the new cases are dropping per 100,000. They're still relatively high compared to where they have been in the past, but we have definitely turned the corner. Number of quarantines from school contacts is gone down to just a couple. Those would be unmasked contacts at lunchtime primarily. We are still having relatively the same amount of home quarantines. That vacillates a little bit depending on what the situation is, but that number's been fairly stable. So as of this afternoon, there were 947 active cases in Tuscarawas County, according to the health department. So we're relatively where we were in the early part of September as far as active cases in Tuscarawas County, which is also true with regard to the state, relatively. So we have turned the corner. We seem to have peaked and are coming back down.
and can you talk about the quarantining requirements from close contact that the county, and it sounds like the city's got the same guidelines?
Yeah, absolutely. The county just made a change. School districts are still maintaining a close working relationship with the health departments and are identifying close contacts for them. Close contacts are defined as unmasked or unvaccinated staff or students who are within 3 feet for 15 minutes or more. So if you're masked or vaccinated, you're not considered a close contact. But if you are a close contact, it has been the case that you would then be quarantined by the health department. The health department is changing those guidelines. They are no longer going to be quarantining close contacts from schools. They are only going to be quarantining contacts that occurred to an exposure outside of school. But school exposures will no longer produce contacts, or no longer produce quarantines, excuse me. Instead, that close contact will have to wear a mask for the next 14 days to help prevent the spread. So we will no longer have any more quarantines from school contacts unless it was an unmasked student due to being at lunch or having an exemption.
But Amy, a question on that. If, let's say Chris's child is in close contact and you said they have to wear a mask for 14 days, they're not quarantined. What if they have an exemption wearing a mask?
Then if they want to be in school, they still have to wear a mask for 14 days?
A exempted student would have to wear a mask or be quarantined.
Or they would have to stay home and be
Okay.
quarantined,
I just want
yes.
to be clear on that.
The mask exemption does not apply to the health department rules.
Okay.
Any other questions?
And are the teachers still going to be required, I'm going to lose my train of thought here, but where they're having to keep track of who's close contact with other kids before information for the health department, or not, or is that eliminated now?
They'll have to keep track of any student who is unmasked.
So they basically have to continue as they have before, they're still having to do all that paperwork.
We have to be able to identify if there were any unmasked students that met the definition of a close contact, yes.
Thanks.
So, concise that for me. We would, under the current New Philadelphia and Tuscarawas County Health Department guidelines, we still need to contact trace.
That was a term I was
But-
looking for.
Those children who are identified as a close contact to a confirmed positive case, do not have to stay home anymore. They just have to wear a mask to school for 10 to 14 days.
No, it's not even 10 to
Okay,
14,
14
it's
days.
14.
So for 14 days. But it would, their guidelines are kind of eliminating, sounds like to me, you're going to miss school because you were a close contact at school.
That is correct.
Okay,
You will no longer miss school because you were a close contact from school.
gotcha.
Regardless if you wear a mask or not, right? It's a little confusing because it's almost like where they're setting it now, well, you don't have to wear a mask to school, but if you're close contact at home but not in school,
If you're a close contact at home, then you'll be quarantined.
you get to be quarantined.
Yes.
Can you come to school with a mask on?
If you come to school with a mask on, then you'll never be a close contact because you don't meet the
If
definition of
you're
a
in close contact at home,
It doesn't matter if you come to,
you have to stay home.
correct.
If you're close contact at home.
If you're a close contact at home, you will still be quarantined.
If you're in close contact at school, you're not. You're not. I mean, it's really, none of it makes sense to me.
Yes, sir.
I mean, they're almost telling you to get rid of the mask mandate because the spread's not in school anymore. It never was. Now they're telling you, okay, well, it only happens at home. So Scott and I live together. We don't have to wear a mask here, but if we're in close contact at home, then it's just really
It's confusing.
It is.
my head spin.
I had to ask for clarification a couple times to make sure I had it in my head.
Especially when it goes from, she uses the definition as direct contact, close contact. Man, is it frustrating. That's all. Making my head spin.
Any other discussion?
Is there any more, I don't know what the right word I'm looking for is here, specific or concrete or definitive guidance from health departments, whether that's county, state? They're still pretty vague on,
Yeah.
nobody's saying we have to do much of anything, except this contact tracing stuff is the only thing they're saying we have to do.
Correct.
Gotcha, okay.
You realize wearing a mask is like trying to stop a mosquito for 10 minutes.
Well, yeah.
Virus.
Any other board
Okay.
discussion?
So I guess the couple questions, actually probably just one question. So, I mean, clearly going in the right direction here, which is positive and encouraging, and I think that's good for our district and community. With what we have and the way our plan is, we can come back at any time and revisit the idea of adjusting it. So what we would be approving through a time period, we can come back at an earlier date and make any adjustment that we want to anywhere along the way, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
I feel like our motion is that we're for sure going to do that, Chris, on the 15th, but if we choose to do it tomorrow, we can do it tomorrow.
Okay, that's my understanding. I just wanted
That's the way I
to,
interpret it, I don't know.
My
okay,
understanding
That's
is we'll
what I-
call a special meeting as needed.
okay. Thank you.
Before you guys vote, last time we were here, some of the school district, or some of the schools had 0 cases. And I kind of did a little Excel file. I mean, we are so low still. I mean, the high school's got the most cases, they only have 7. So extending it to the 15th, what, are you waiting for the numbers to go up? So we can't say, well, no, we can't go back now. Because extending it now would be the only school district in the entire county. So is it something you guys are seeing different than every other school district? And I think we're about, 80 active cases, from our cumulative cases from the beginning. So I would just like to know, and I know a couple other people like to know, what are we basing it off? If we have 1 case or 0 cases or even 7. I mean, we can't say our numbers are up. We're going to the county. Well, no other school district is looking at the county numbers. And if they are, they're saying, well, we don't need a mask mandate because of this number. So if each one of you or just one of you could explain that, I think we could maybe understand it better. Because like if we look at the Quaker Dome, they don't wear a mask because they're preschool, which is great. They don't need to wear it. They have had 1 case all year. And those are the kids that are flicking their hands, they're fighting crayons. I mean, that is where, and if you look at the numbers for the daycares in Tuscarawas County, those are down. If we're going to spread COVID, it's going to be there. And to keep the first grade, kindergartners, first graders, keep those kids in masks, I mean, it's crazy to me when you have 1 case. I think we have 3 cases throughout the younger kids at York and East. I mean, I'm not anti-mask, I'm just, let these parents do what they want. If somebody wants to have their kid wear 10 masks to school, let them do it.
Well, I think I'll just speak for myself, not for the board. Friend Jill gave a very good reason. We're looking at last year, we'll all agree things were pretty awful last year. And our teachers, we had 11 people that were out because of COVID. I'm not saying they had COVID, I'm saying, yeah. Thus far, this short time this year, 14, something's going on. But if me wearing this mask can keep Chris from getting sick, I'll wear the mask. I mean, that's how I feel. We're here to, I know you are too. You're wanting to protect the kids and the staff. We're doing what we hope is the best thing. And I hate to think that I'm going to remove the mask and next month we meet and those numbers are sky high, because that'll be on me.
Well,
I mean, that's where I'm
coming from.
also
say where you mandate the mask, and the high school had 5 people mandated, now they have 7. So, I mean, what, if you guys go down this road, you keep people saying, leading to the super low. Now, I mean, even back when we mandated it, you should look at the kids and say, you're not quite
but maybe those, and
maybe it's because there was no really plan in your 0 cases, you can't go any lower.
well,
I hit that last time.
what I think of, well, yeah, maybe there's 7. I mean, I don't know the exact numbers. You guys can tell me the exact.
18 right now.
But let's say there was 7. Maybe without, and I'm just thinking maybe. I understand this is a maybe. This is a maybe. Maybe those numbers would have been 20. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I can't say wearing the mask are not giving us more cases. And maybe, we pray to God, they're preventing 1 kid or 1 teacher. That's what I want to do. And, I mean, that's where I'm at. You know, that's my honest
But
feeling.
it's just never going to go away. And I'm not arguing it. I mean,
No, I understand.
you
And
know,
I pray that
it's
it goes
never going
away.
to go away, and we can't continue to live in fear. I mean, the kids, especially, it does not. You might have. I mean, there's always a case where somebody gets really sick, and I don't want that for anybody's kids.
No.
But I mean, we have when the cases are so low, it's so hard for me to believe that we have to institute a mask mandate or continue it when we're at 0 or 1 case in the majority of the schools in the district. And I can't be the only one in this room that thinks that, because if you're at 0, you're at 1 out of 250 to 300 kids, that you can continue the mask mandate. It just, I don't know. And if somebody could tell me, hey, we got 1 case at East out of however many kids, or 1 at South, I mean, there's no way this spreads in school. And the health department has now confirmed that. So
Thanks for your opinion.
Thank you. Call the roll.
Wait,
Mr. Weaver,
What's that?
I'm calling roll.
I don't want to muddy the waters, but I'm gonna, I don't care if you want a mask or not. I think that's, I just, me personally, for what it's worth, and I agree with Denny, you know, it might help so that, but people know that, people understand that, and people have to make that decision around their dinner table at night. And I guess I'm not so sure that I'm qualified to make that kind of decision for a family. And my vote this evening certainly isn't against wearing a mask. I got a mask on right now. I have a very real medical exemption. That's why I pull it off on occasion, to get the fresh air back in there again. But I want to support what we're doing. However, my vote this evening is not against wearing a mask in school. My vote this evening is against the Board of Education making that decision. Thank you.
Mr. Weaver,
Yes.
Mr. Galantine,
Yes.
Mr. France,
No.
Mr. Fuller,
Yes.
Ms. Sleeper,
Yes.
motion carries.
Item 6, treasurer's report.
Okay, so I already reviewed the information about the identity theft. Does anybody want me to provide any more information? Is that a good report? Are you all good with that?
Does anyone else have any questions about identity theft? What occurred?
Keep us posted on status and where that's at.
And again, I do apologize. I provided in your folder the September 2021 financial statement, the key indicator, the cash flow report, the check register, DA and QPA financial reports, and the bank reconciliation. I'm also requesting FMLA for Natalie Shy, Marlene Dunn, Marie Martini, Tora Clapper, and Preston Cornell. Item N is the Vasco sports contracts to replace the running track at the, at Woody Hayes Quaker Stadium. And you'll notice I did not to exceed because, the district hasn't determined yet what type of track we're putting down. And so, the estimate for the cost, this would be what kind of track?
Pretty nice.
A good one.
Urethane?
Polyurethane?
Yeah.
Okay. So basically, that decision still has to be determined, but the high end of that cost is $278. And by the way, we do have a fund for a set aside for the stadium where we put money away each year so that we can save to keep up with the repairs and the replacements. I'm asking you to approve the YMCA swim contract for $4,200. The TransFinder contract for $30,835 is transportation routing software to help to make the transportation routing a little more smooth throughout the year. And I presented the Vitality Activity Report. There's no real report on that right now because that comes into play really more towards January. We received a donation from the Dover Philly USBC in the amount of $100 for the bowling program. And then I'm asking for amendments to my estimated resources and amended appropriations, which I'm going to come back to in a minute here. And I'm asking to increase the substitute pay based on our work session. The classified would go to $10.50 per hour. Bus drivers would go to $15.50 per hour. Certified subs would be $100 a day, and permanent subs would be $115 per day. With that, I will entertain a motion, and then I want to circle back around and explain the estimated resources and amended appropriations.
Move.
I'll second.
Okay. So I had some questions from different board members asking about the amended certificates and the amended appropriations. These are required by law. It's a method of budgeting in order to be able to spend. It gives me the approval to receipt and expend money. Once I get the approval from the board, I can set up my budgets, and so that way we're permitted to receipt. And then I have to also submit everything to the county, Larry Lindberg, who checks all my budgets, and he replies back to say that my budgets are aligned. Every school district in the state of Ohio has to do this. The question arose with the ESSER funding, and the reason ESSER funding is different from any other funds is because when they gave us those ESSER funds, they cover 3 years in time. And so what happens is with each new budget period, I have to have them reapproved again. Last year, we got the 7.9796, the 7,796,000 in ESSER funding, but the federal government did not provide the money to the state government in order to be able to pay us. So they gave it to us and said, here's your allocation. Go ahead and spend that money. Oh, by the way, we're not going to reimburse you yet because we don't have the money yet. So I had the money approved last year. We never got a penny of it. So I have to bring it back into my budgets again this year. It is not a second allocation. It's the exact same allocation, but I have to bring it back on my budgets this year to be able to request the money to reimburse us. Does that make sense? Is that a little clear? These are basically just budgets. They're not actual people handing us money.
Yeah, but I'm one of the ones, I saw that, I got all excited. I thought we had another $70 million. That's the money. I was dancing in our house. Dance ended when I found out it wasn't.
But this is, Julie, more of a continuation because it's a 3-year
Yes.
grant.
And so next year, if we don't spend all that $7.7 million next year, let's say we spend $4 million of it. Next year, I have to bring back on my budgets again that the remaining amount of that money in order to receipt and expend it next year. A budget, it's life. A budget's a living document, but its life is 1 year, a fiscal year. And so each fiscal year, I have to reset those budgets. And then as they change, I need to look at them and see, you know, if I've over budgeted, if I've under budgeted. So I make increases and decreases occasionally based on how that works. So a good example of that is the Title IV money in 599. You see that decreasing? The reason that's decreasing is because this year when they came out with our allocations, they changed it from a 599 fund to a 584 fund. So I had to decrease what I allocated to 599 and put it in the 584 fund.
But specific to the ESSER funds, they tell us, and all school districts, what this money can be used on.
Yes.
We tried to identify needs within our district and then apply for the funds.
Yes.
And then they say, okay, and apparently they said, okay, that's approximately $7.8 million of
Yes.
expenditures. And we've already approved some of it.
The expenditure piece I had approved originally when I asked for my budget appropriations in the permanent appropriations at the beginning of the year. Because I had purchase orders written against them, so I had to approve the expenditures then.
But then we got another 1.5 that we've got going on soon.
Well, they gave us additional allocations.
Right,
So
okay.
in the CCIP, which is where we get these allocations, occasionally they decrease and increase them. So they increased it by $1.5 million, so I'm bringing that on now.
But once they promise us the money, they can't decrease that.
Yes, they can.
Oh, they do all the time.
Yeah, they can decrease it. However, with ESSER funding,
How close do we get to spending the money before we know they're not going to give us the money?
well, here's a good example. You want an example of that?
Yes, I do.
We get an allocation every year of $240,000 for preschool. 2 weeks ago, they said we didn't meet that for last year, and so they took $8,000 away per student, which is about $24,000 from last year's allocation, which was already spent. So the general fund has to reimburse that fund when that happens. It doesn't happen often, but it is an example. Any other questions?
The track, oh, I'm sorry, did you have a question about the money, Chris?
No, my question was on the track, so it sounds like you're gonna either ask the same question or
I
clarify.
was.
Thank you.
We could maybe eke, and somebody jump in and correct me if I'm wrong here, another year out of the track with some maintenance and be able to replace it with a track very similar to what we have now for that $229,000, I think is what the figure is off the top of my head on the handout.
Yes.
And as we were discussing that, the folks at Vasco were willing to lock that price in for about 18 months if we cut them the purchase order now for this similar quality track than what we have now. A lot of volatility in materials, labor, all that kind of stuff right now, which seemed good. But as our conversations in the facilities committee developed, there are folks in the community that have expressed interest in helping us fund a little bit better track. And that's where you see the approximately $50,000 at the bottom for the upgrade. That's for using urethane instead of, I forget, latex to glue that chrome rubber that you see on our track together, is the way it was explained to us. I'm not a runner, I'm a walker. I understand it's much more comfortable to run on, and the way that, whether this is effective or not, forgive me if it's not, but the more we talked about it, what I boiled it down to was that the turf at Quaker Stadium is the exact same material you're going to find the Ohio State Buckeyes playing on in Columbus on Saturday afternoons. And if we're going to go to that extent for our football players and soccer players and the band kids, should we also go to that extent for our people that run on the track? And the consensus at the facilities committee meeting was that if we can come up with the money and folks want to help us fund that, it is justifiable to make sure we're giving all of our students the same great Quaker experience, regardless of what they're involved in or to what extent they're involved in. So that, I don't know if I'm answering what your question was going to.
Yep, you answered them.
Okay, so that's how we got to that. If I remember right, as an added bonus, the urethane track can actually be red. The problem is there's 78 different shades of red, and it's probably going to take somebody 2 or 3 years to make sure it's not crimson instead of red. So that's where we're at with that. But it
Great.
good possibility if we come up with the money that can be done next summer. Is that right?
I think with the urethane, that's that price for what we have now basically would be something that they would extend that pricing to next year. If we go with the urethane, that they can't guarantee that pricing to the next one because of the price differences in supply chain and everything else. It's a lot more risky for them to be able to do that with the urethane.
Great.
Any other questions? All right, call the roll.
Mr. France?
Yes.
Mr. Galantine?
Yes.
Dr. Fuller? Ms. Leeper?
Yes.
Mr. Weaver?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Item 7, personnel.
We have a few resignations. You will notice under classified, there is a rescission and a hiring of the same bus driver. When we hired her earlier this summer, we did not give her her years of experience. So we wanted to make that correction. There's a list of supplementals, a list of volunteers, some field experience, student teachers. Draw your attention to the bottom, although the list is short, we are adding to both our substitute pool, our substitute bus driver pool, and our substitute aide pool. So slowly but surely, we are adding some people there. Actually have a few more working on getting the paperwork in. So that is exciting. And if I get a motion, I have one more comment about subs there as well.
I move.
Second.
So the Senate Bill 1, which will allow substitute flexibility as far as hiring, originally was thought to go to the governor's desk last week. That didn't happen. I don't know if they used the Pony Express or how it got delayed, but it did get delayed. What I heard Friday afternoon late was that they expected it to be on his desk today or tomorrow and that he would sign it soon. So we are still hopeful to get that done here in the next day or so, and then we will be able to advertise for substitutes who have a high school diploma and are able to get a substitute license with that additional flexibility. I have already had some people reach out to me and ask me about that, so I am confident we're going to increase our sub pool when that becomes a law. So excited about that. Any other questions?
Mr. Galantine?
Yes.
Mr. Weaver?
Yes.
Mr. France?
Yes.
Dr. Fuller?
Yes.
Ms. Leeper?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Item 8, committee representative reports.
Already
Anything
won.
more for facilities? Okay. Any other committee reports? No? All righty. Superintendent's report.
All right, I have 2 items for approval tonight. The first is an MOU with OPSI. This is regarding our bus drivers. In the contract right now, it says that for weekend bus trips, there has to be at least 3 hours between trips for the same bus driver to take the same trips. And this was actually brought to me by the bus drivers. They asked that we reduce that time frame because they are having to turn down trips that they otherwise could take. And in some cases, we've had to cancel events because we couldn't get drivers. So it's something we were glad to do to increase that flexibility, should help ensure that we have drivers available in more cases. So ask for that for approval. The second item is to approve the local graduation seal requirements, beginning with next year's class of 2023 graduates. Earning graduation seals is one option for them to meet their graduation requirements. And I did include in your exhibits kind of the guidelines for what graduation requirements are. I am not going to try to summarize them because if you read the document, they are quite extensive as far as options for students to meet graduation requirements. But as part of that, there are 3 seals that are to be defined at the local level. And so kudos to our high school staff who has done some work on developing the plan for what those 3 local seal requirements would look like. So they've put a lot of effort into this. I think it's a good plan. It's similar to what some other districts have done as well, but it does require board approval that these are the options that we're going to present to our students as ways that they can meet their graduation requirements. So.
Motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
With the seals, so these will have to be retired, one from each seal, or is it one?
They're options. They have to complete one of the Ohio defined seals, which are
Okay.
not on this.
Which would be your graduation requirements, your yell at your.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Then they can choose one of these, or they can choose another Ohio defined seal.
Okay, but so it
So-
would just be one of these, the community
Correct.
service, the arts, okay.
Correct.
I thought that's how I was reading it, but I wasn't sure, so.
Yes,
Okay.
that is correct. Any other questions?
Call the roll.
Mr. Weaver?
Yes.
Mr. France?
Yes.
Dr. Fuller?
Yes.
Mr. Galantine?
Yes.
Ms. Leeper?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Move to adjourn?
So moved.
Done, Dan.
All right.